Hello everyone and welcome to the round 4 recap of the Moja Extravaganza 2025. And it is a beautiful day. I decided to film the recap a day after just because there's only one round today, so I thought, let's take it easy, let's take it sleazy. I don't know what the kids say these days. But in round 4 I played against a fellow South African and someone I've played against for many years actually. I think the first time we played was back in 2013 or 2014, so I've known her for quite a while. Just a huge shout out to Not Joel for covering the round. Thank you so much. And yeah, I really hope that everyone watching the live stream had a great time. It was a very stressful game. I thought, going into the opening, I end up with a really nice position, and this seems to be like a norm. And that's why I'm working on positional play at the moment. I'm going through the woodpecker method, positional play by Axel Smith. So I'm really hoping that that's going to kick in quickly and I'll be able to play better positional chess and convert, winning positions. So in this game, I really wanted to play a solid game. I know she's a tricky player and can often just, take an equal position and turn it all the way upside down just by sacrificing something dubiously, and it works if I don't defend correctly. And something very similar happened in this game. So let's jump straight into it. I played against Jackie Grobbelaar 1600, and we have a Sicilian. Now you were probably expecting the French, but I wanted to shake things up a little bit because I've made too many videos on the French so far, and we know that the French haters out there are probably wondering, when is she going to play a different opening? And here we have it. The reason why I play the Sicilian is because Jackie usually plays the closed Sicilian and doesn't go with this like d4 opening up the center and so on. So I thought I could always transpose to a French structure in case I felt a little uncomfortable with moves like e6, g6, bishop g7. Like this is like a normal setup. Okay, Botvinnik system maybe, but with e6 it would already feel a little bit closer to home. All right, so I played knight c6, bishop c4, and e6. Of course you want to stop any tactics later on. Knight to f3, knight g to e7, and here the plan is simply to put the bishop on g7, castle, and then later decide whether I want to play d6, e5, f5, and so on. All right, so queen to e2. Definitely not what I had expected, though this makes me believe that she wants to keep her options open to perhaps long castle. Right, so a6, a4, normal, I'm threatening b5 and trapping the bishop, so a4 is probably a must, and g6, d3, bishop g7, bishop g5, and d6. Right. So the thing is, I could castle here, I just didn't want... what didn't I want to happen? Probably this e5 move would have been a little bit uncomfortable for me to deal with, so d6 was probably the best here. I still haven't taken a look at the game with the engine. So much has been going on, and honestly need to, after this tournament, take a serious look at both my openings and the way I've played this tournament. Alright, so castles. And I felt very comfortable here because the plan is simple. I can either go e5, f5, which was probably the best. I can go h6, g5, d5. The world is my oyster. Clam. Crab? I don't know the saying. Rook f to e1. h6, bishop h4, and g5. The reason why I extended a bit here on the king side is so that I can play knight to g6 and maybe even have prospects of putting my knight here on f4 later on with moves like e5, knight f4. But of course, as time progressed, I spent quite a bit of time here in the opening wanting and, really trying to find the best way forward. Pawn advancements and captures in the center are really difficult for me, so that's why it took so long. And it probably will continue to be more difficult. This is what I love about the Woodpecker Method 2 book. If you have any book suggestions, by the way, in chat to help me with this problem, please let me know in the comments. I just want to get a little bit better at fully understanding when to push or when to take. Or when to just leave it there. Right, so d5. I played d5 because I wanted to, there are ants everywhere. They also like chess, it seems. d5, I wanted to block out the bishop. Another reason why I played d5 is so that I could perhaps even play d4 here and push the knight back. Because even after c3, I don't have to take it. Knight is out of action for a bit and doesn't really have any squares to go to. I actually forgot that knight b1, knight d2 was an idea, but somehow she did eventually go here. Spoiler alert. So many spoilers. I need to just stop with spoilers. So bishop to b3 and d4, knight d1. Unconnecting, or disconnecting rather, disconnecting the rooks. And the knight is just out of... He's on vacation mode for now. Knight g6, and we see the plan in action. c3. What I had expected, of course, and I wasn't too sure how to proceed here, but I did have some sort of idea of what I wanted to happen. I wanted to push this knight back as well, and also to maybe even have some ideas of pushing the pawn so far that the king is in danger. And that's exactly what I did. So g4, pushing the knight back to d2, and e5, protecting the pawn. And now after h3 or f3, I would simply play h5 and recapture with the bishop. That way I can bring my queen in, my knight in, and you know what they say, throw in the kitchen sink and the position will provide, is an ancient Chinese proverb that I had tattooed on my ankle when I was 3 years old. f3, as predicted, right on time. h5 takes, and white is probably running out of pieces to retreat at this point. So now I thought, since I have all the space in the center, it's pretty static, I don't have to worry too much about the center opening up anytime soon. I could simply redirect my forces towards the king's side. h4, bishop f2, and queen g5. And this way, I'm also disallowing the knight to go to f3. I just simply take, it's free. I expected king h1 at some stage, but here the knight's actually hanging, so knight to c4. And I liked that I was pushing the pieces off to the queen side. Knight to f4, just wanted to keep bringing my pieces forward here, and at this point I think it was almost forced for her to sacrifice or, you know, give a piece here, because otherwise I have a lot of threats, and I'll show you what I'm threatening. In the case of king to h1, I believe it was just possible for me to play, and now I need to think, probably h3 here. I think it was h3, because if takes, you lose the queen, most likely, or get checkmated, so pushing, because check, maybe here, and you lose the queen. Yeah, you have to give up the queen. Right, so giving a piece was probably mandatory. But this is where I thought things would just become easier and simpler for me. They did not. I took it, of course, but even after captures, how do you convert this? I know slow and steady wins the race, but it's me you're talking about here. I don't have a slow bone in my body. Knight to d6. I thought with the knight in my camp, there could be potential ways to trap it. So I went ahead and played bishop e6 because f7 was under attack. I'm also just putting pressure on this pawn on g2, and after captures, I thought this position was quite nice for me. So knight takes on b5. And here I've given up a second pawn for the piece, and I have to worry about giving a third, just because 3 pawns is equal to a minor piece, right, in most cases. Rook b8, attacking the knight and the pawn behind it. Knight to c7, and now the threat is probably I don't know if I could have just taken here. Probably could have. But then what happens after takes is bishop takes, pawn takes, and knight takes. And I didn't like this very much. It's probably still good. Let me check. Yeah, it's still good, but I didn't want it. So I played knight d8 into passivity. And here's my problem with the conversion I was talking about. Bishop c1 protecting b2. And now I wanted to try and trap this knight. Or just push it to the side. Because now he's not only on vacation mode, he's also on airplane mode. Rook f7 indirectly attacking the queen. King h1 so that there isn't any discovered attack with check. And bishop f8. The bishop's not doing anything. I think this is a critical moment because I do need to come up with an idea that's actually going to make things move forward. But this bishop is both doing nothing, and on f8 it's protecting the pawn. So I thought, you know what, I just needed to improve it bit by bit. So bishop f8, bishop e3, putting more pressure on the c5 pawn, and now I played queen to g4. Bishop takes knight. So the reason why I played this, and I'll show you in a second. Right, very, very nice idea I had. Sorry, just trying to recall from yesterday morning's game. In the case of knight takes, I believe I have this move. I think I do. Because takes, rook f1 check, bishop back, and the knight is free. And I get my piece back. And even after this, I don't have to worry too much. Here, and I take it. Because after bishop takes, pawn takes, and I'm queening. So it's a nice line that I took a look at in my during the game. I saw this, and I assume this is why she took on f4 instead of picking up the pawn. I think the same thing happens after bishop takes here. But maybe it's a little bit more straightforward, right? Because I can just play knight e2. And this isn't possible because checkmate. And there's no bishop to block the checkmate. Of course, after this, the queen can't really go anywhere. So that's why queen takes e2 seemed to me like the only way. Okay, so taking the knight, so no tactics for me, unfortunately. Pawn takes and b4. I thought, okay, now we're simplifying. This is good. I'm just a knight up. I can pick up the pawn on the b file. So I tried to activate my knight while attacking the pawn at the same time, completely forgetting that this pawn is actually running. I mean, yes, it's unchaperoned, but it's also not being threatened. So I needed to do something about that. And f3 was probably a little bit too hasty. I should have gone rook b7, I think, because after rook b1, what I was afraid of was just threats along the c-file. I think I'm seeing ghosts. And perhaps here would have been a great moment just to play something like king g7. Because of queen c1, I can try to... Now I can go maybe f3, and there aren't any like immediate threats. And after this, maybe I can just go here. Or even just take. I think I can just take it. Okay, so I saw some ghosts and played f3, which was probably quite a big mistake here. And after rook to b1, rook b7, stopping the pawn from going forward with queen f2. Move I didn't even consider at the time. Attacking the knight. If I move the knight, then f3 is hanging, so I felt like I had to defend it. I defended the knight with e5, and also allowing, in some ways, in some variations, my queen to come back if needed. Takes, and I can't actually take it back, because if I take, there's some things I have to worry about probably. And even if I do end up just going backwards, I'm running out of pawns to keep, and running the risk of either losing the game or drawing the game, so we don't want that. I played queen to f4, because after rook g1, it both leaves the protection of the pawn and allows me the chance to move my king. So I played king h7. I didn't play king f7 because of this check, and king f8 just felt just as passive, and I wanted to bring my king forward. And rook to g4, giving me a chance now to take, and if king g2, I have check to pick up the pawn. I'm also defending this pawn temporarily, and I can take here at any point. So king g2, and probably just knight e1 here, but I had 2 minutes on the clock, so knight e1 takes on d3 was likely the way forward, I think. But after rook f7, if pushes, I get an intermezzo, pick up the pawn, and then pick up on d3. h3, knight e1, king g1, pushing the king back, very important, and taking the pawn. Takes. See, my king is more active, so even if I am still 2 pawns down for the knight, I have more of a chance here, I feel like, to defend the pawn, pick up the other pawns with a minor and major piece. Check and king h5. Maybe bringing the king towards this pawn was better, but okay. Some maneuvers, and she was also quite low on time here at 1.5 minutes. Ended up taking on h3. I grab what I believe is rightfully mine, you know, and knight to g5. The reason why I played this move is because I didn't want any checks on g6. I wanted to attack the pawn, and I also wanted some chances maybe to play check and bring the king, bring the rook around and attack the pawn from behind. Because then the rook is definitely not allowed to leave the defense of the pawn, even though that's probably the case here. My rook will just be more active behind the pawn, not stuck in front of it. So the rook is going after my final pawn. Leave me alone, I said in a very nice voice. But I got check, and this is probably really close to a draw, in fact. I only had seconds on the clock and I needed to come up with a plan. So I thought attack the rook, bring the king closer. Maybe I can achieve this because it's mate, but also attack the pawn and try to win that way. The one thing I had was the king on the back rank, and maybe I could have made that work, but let's see. So rook e8 and king f4, and probably it's just important to, you know, keep the rook active, like either with checks everywhere or something like that. But instead my opponent played e5, creating the perfect blockade for my king to swiftly move to e3 and deliver the checkmate on the next move, which was rook to f2. So she was kind enough to allow it after e6, rook f2 checkmate. I definitely made that look a lot harder than it should have been. Thank you all for watching the video. This is round 4, and yeah, just gonna start up round 5 almost immediately. So stay tuned.